Hey there, amazing people. I'm thrilled to have you here today. Hello, dear viewers. Get ready to expand your horizons as we delve into 613 commandments. According to Jewish tradition, the Torah contains 613 commandments. Although the number 613 is mentioned in the Talmud, its real significance increased in later medieval rabbinic literature, including many works listing or arranged by the most famous of these was an enumeration of the 613 commandments by Maimonides. While the total number of commandments is 613, no individual can perform all of them. Many can only be observed at the temple in Jerusalem, which no longer stands. According to one standard reckoning, there are 77 positive and 194 negative commandments that can be observed today, of which there are 26 commandments that apply only within the land of Israel. In addition, some commandments only apply to certain categories of Jews, some are only observed by kohanim, and others only by men or by women. Let's now turn our gaze towards symbolism of 613 and explore the fascinating connections it has to offer. Rav Hamnina sourced the count of 613 in the verse Moses commanded us the Torah. The Talmud notes that the Hebrew numerical value gematria of the word Torah is 611 400, 6, 200, 5. Combining 611 commandments which Moses taught the people, with the first two of the 10 commandments which were the only ones directly heard from God, a total of 613 is reached. Other sources connect that tzitzit ritual fringes of a garment to the 613 commandments by gematria. The word Hebrew, in its Mishnaic spelling, has the value 690, 10, 400. Each tassel has 8 threads when doubled over and 5 sets of knots. The sum of all these numbers is 613, reflecting the concept that reminds its wearer of all Torah commandments. Many Jewish philosophical and mystical works, e.g., Ibal Hacham, the Mahal of Prague, and leaders of Hasidic Judaism find allusions and inspirational calculations relating to the number of commandments. As we progress, let's zoom in on descent and difficulties and examine its role in shaping our overall narrative. Rabbinic support for the number of commandments being 613 is not without dissent. For example, Ben Otsai held that there exist 300 positive. Also, even as the number gained acceptance, difficulties arose in elucidating the list. Some rabbis declared that this count was not an authentic tradition, or that it was not logically possible to come up with a systematic count. No early work of Jewish law or biblical commentary depended on the 613 system, and no early systems of Jewish principles of faith made acceptance of this agod a non-legal Talmudic statement normative. A number of classical authorities denied that it was normative. Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra denied that this was an authentic rabbinic tradition. Ibn Ezra writes, some sages enumerate 613 in many diverse ways, but in truth there is no end to the number of, and if we were to count only the root principles, the number of would not reach 613. Maimonides held that this particular counting was a matter of rabbinic controversy, and that rabbinic opinion on this is not unanimous. Nonetheless, he concedes that this total has proliferated throughout the Aggadic literature. We ought to say that it was a tradition from Moses at Mount Sinai. Rabbi Simeon ben Zema likewise rejected the dogma of the 613 as being the sum of the law, saying that perhaps the agreement that the number of is 613 is just Rabbi Simlei's opinion, following his own explication of the, and we need not rely on his explication when we come to determine the law, but rather on the Talmudic discussions. Maimonides held that the number 613 was only one Rabbi Simlei's opinion, and if the conclusion of a Talmudic discussion indicated that the number of commandments was greater or lesser than 613, Rabbi Simlei's opinion would be overruled. He argued that the number 613 was only intended as an approximation, and that the comparison to 248 limbs and 365 days was intended homiletically to motivate Jews to keep the commandments. The Vilna Gaon suggested that there exist many more than 613 commandments because otherwise large narrative parts of the Pentateuch would be without commandments, which he considered difficult to accept, and that the count of 613 refers to roots of the other commandments. Even when rabbis attempted to compile a list of the 613 commandments, they were faced with a number of difficulties. Which statements were to be included amongst the 613 commandments? Every one of God's commands to any individual or to the entire people of Israel. Would an order from God be counted as a commandment for the purposes of such a list if it could only be complied with in one place and time? Else, would such an order only count as a commandment if it could be followed at all times? The latter is the view of Maimonides. Does counting a single commandment depend on whether it falls within one verse, even though it may contain multiple prohibitions, or should each prohibition count as a single commandment? Ultimately, though, the concept of 613 commandments has become accepted as normative amongst practicing Jews, and today it is still common practice to refer to the total system of commandments within the Torah as the 613 commandments, even among those who do not literally accept this count as accurate. However, the 613 do not constitute a formal code of present-day halakha. Later codes of law such as the Shulchan Aruch and the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch do not refer to it. However, Maimonides' Mishneh Torah is prefaced by a count of the 613 mitzvot. Without further ado, let's move on to the topic of works which enumerate the commandments. There is no single definitive list that explicates the 613 commandments. Lists differ, for example, in how they interpret passages in the Torah that may be read as dealing with several cases under a single law or several separate laws. See here for a visual comparison of several lists. Other commandments in the Torah are restricted as one-time acts, and would not be considered as binding on other persons. In rabbinic literature, Rishonim and later scholars composed to articulate and justify their enumeration of the commandments halachot gedolot great laws, thought to be written by Rabbi Simeon K. Yara. The author of the is the earliest extant enumeration of the Book of Commandments by Rabbi Sodia Gan. Written during the period of the Jonim, Sodia's work is a simple list, though it was later expanded by Rabbi Yerucham Fishel per the Sefer HaMitzvot Book of Commandments by Maimonides, with a commentary by Nachmanides. Maimonides employs a set of 14 rules which determine inclusion into the list. In this work, he supports his specification of each mitzvah through quotations from the Midrash Halakha and the Gemara. Nachmanides makes a number of critical points and replaces some items of the list with other Sefahot Chinuch Book of Education. This work generally follows Maimonides' reckoning of the 613 commandments. It is written in the order in which the commandments appear in the Torah rather than an arrangement by category as in Maimonides' work. In addition to enumerating the commandments and giving a brief overview of relevant laws, the also tries to explain the philosophical reasons behind the. It has been attributed to various authors, most commonly Rabbi Aaron Halevi of Barcelona, though its true authorship is unknown. For Mitzvot Gadol or Smag Large Book of Commandments by Rabbi Moses ben Jacob of Kasibi, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan. The S work follows the reckoning of Maimonides but gives only the commandments relevant today. Notably, this listing omits commandments regarding temple service, ritual purity, sacrifices, and so on. Though the original work included only those commandments relevant in all places and at all times, later editions include agricultural laws relevant today only in the land of Israel. In this section, we'll be deep diving into works in which the number of commandments is not 613, unraveling its complexities and uncovering valuable insights. Eliezer ben Samuel lists only 417 commandments, including commandments only applicable when the temple stood. Menahem Rekanati, in his book, counted 250 positive and 361 negative commandments, for a total of 611. These 611 include the 2 commandments indicating that this list is incompatible with the approach of Maimonides in the Talmud, who said that of the 613 commandments, the 2 in Exodus were given directly by God, and the remaining 611 via Moses. By Rabbi Isaac of Corbeil, listed 320 commandments applicable nowadays. To reach a total of 613, one would have to add 293 commandments applicable only while the temple stood. As the number of temple-only commandments appears to be much lower than 293, for example, Sefer Hanuch only counted 201 such commandments. It seems that the overall count of commandments would likely be lower than according to Asal ben or Maimonides' commentary to the Torah indicates that he counted a total of 513 commandments. As we embark on the next leg of our journey, let's unpack the layers of Maimonides' list and examine its core elements. The following are the 613 commandments and the source of their derivation from the Hebrew Bible as enumerated by Maimonides. As we embark on the next leg of our journey, let's unpack the layers of typical order and examine its core elements. Order as typically presented. To know there is a God, a Bible, the 6. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this video.